Hey, what's up, life designers? Welcome to Intentional Tuesdays. A few weeks ago, I heard a podcast where they were interviewing a Navy SEAL, a former Navy SEAL, and he mentioned that the Navy SEALs have a motivational mantra that they use on a regular basis, and that mantra was 1% better. And the idea here is that every day you should strive to be 1% better than you were yesterday. And I think this is a really cool idea. It's one that I've heard over the years on multiple occasions. But for me, this idea has always come up just a little bit short. And although I appreciate it, I think there's a little bit that leaves to be desired. And my goal today is to discuss the shortcomings of 1% better and also offer you an alternative, or maybe think of it as an augmentation to make the 1% better idea better. So let's start with the positives, the good side of this 1% idea, because there are some things that I really like about the idea. The first is that it's 1% seems incredibly easy. I mean, if you think about it, 1% is nothing. Surely we can do something each and every day to make us 1% better than we were yesterday. So I really like the fact that 1% feels very, very achievable. I also like the idea that 1%, although small in and of itself, when compounded over the course of 365 days, if you do the math on that, it actually works out to be that you will have a 37 times improvement over where you started from. If you just improve 1% every day, that's a 37-fold improvement over the course of 365 days. So it's a really powerful concept, and you can really get a lot done with 1% per day. So I really like that idea too. So here's my problem with 1% better. It's very abstract. The idea of measuring 1%. 1% of what? Certainly, when it comes to our lives, there will be times when 1% measurement makes sense. For example, suppose you're measuring, how many miles you run every day as part of your exercise routine. You can easily measure 1% more distance or 1% faster time. 1% makes sense in that particular situation. But much of our life doesn't lend itself to these concrete percentage measurements. So for me, it's just a little bit too abstract, and it's not very actionable, this idea of 1%, because if it's not actionable, I won't stick with the plan. I won't get anything done. So that's why I love the 1% concept as a motivational tool, but as a plan for action, it leaves me wanting a little bit more. So I would like to offer an alternative, and I call it the developmental microdose. The developmental microdose. These are really small actions that you can take on a daily basis that will ultimately yield a long-term benefit, even though the microdose itself might not yield a perceptible benefit. So by thinking about developmental microdoses, we still get the same advantages of the 1% better rule, in the sense that a microdose is very small, it's very achievable. We can do a microdose every day without too much strain on the overall life system. And ultimately, we will have that compounding effect that you get with the 1% per day rule. So I really like this idea of developmental microdoses, and I'm going to share with you a few ideas about how to make that happen in your life. So now, first off, you can create developmental microdoses for every area of your life, or any area, including the 7 areas of life design. And I've actually created a worksheet downloadable in the written portion of this blog post, where you can see I brainstormed about 5 or 6 ideas for microdoses in each of the 7 areas of life design. So you can go ahead and grab that to kind of spur your thinking. But really, you can apply the concept of microdoses to any area of your life where you are really trying to seek long-term benefits. Now, you can also mix and match your microdoses every day. You don't have to do all in the area of health, or you don't have to do every day a microdose in the area of finances or relationships. You can mix and match your microdoses every single day. As long as you take 1 microdose per day, then you're okay. The power of the microdose really comes from your intentionality. So the first thing you want to do is you want to identify a whole bunch of different microdoses up front. Like I said, I created a worksheet that will get you started, but you really want to think through your life and you want to create these different microdoses in advance. So that way you can choose to do them throughout the day. So what I don't want you to do is at the end of the day, look back at your day and identify something that you did and say, oh yeah, that was my microdose, that counted. You really want to be making a choice to take your microdose every single day. So the best way to facilitate that is really to identify a whole bunch of these microdoses up front for all the different areas of your life. And that way throughout the day you can pick and choose which ones make the most sense. Now you also want to be very intentional as you're doing the developmental microdose. And I really want you, while you're doing whatever it is you're doing, I really want you to think about and connect with the long-term benefit, the reason why you are taking this particular microdose. Don't just do the activity. For example, if you're meditating or if you're journaling or if you are some kind of an exercise routine, anything that you can think of that happens to be your developmental microdose, don't just go through the motions. And you don't get quite the same benefit as if you are very present, very aware, very intentional as you are doing the microdose. And like I said, really connecting with the long-term benefit, because the individual benefits are not going to be noticeable for the most part. If you do 20 push-ups, you're not going to notice a physical benefit of those 20 push-ups right away. So you really have to remind yourself that there is a long-term benefit. So that's really crucial when it comes to these developmental microdoses. Now you want to be able to set some parameters for what counts as a minimum microdose. You don't want to cheat yourself. A lot of times your microdoses will be measurable by time. If that's the case, then I recommend a minimum time commitment. So my coaching instructors used to talk about the minimum of 1%, or rather 1 minute. So the goal was to meditate for 20 minutes a day and to journal for 20 minutes a day, but we were allowed to scale that back if it didn't feel right for us on that particular day. We could scale it back, but we couldn't ever skip it entirely. So, I really like this concept as it applies to microdoses. Don't ever skip your microdose entirely. Even if you're only going to do 1 minute of a microdose that you normally think of as being a 20-minute microdose, do not skip it entirely. At least commit to doing that 1 minute per day. Create a mechanism that is easy to remind yourself and easy to track whether or not you did your microdose every day. A friend of mine gave me a tip the other day where he suggested wadding up a napkin or a piece of paper and putting that wadded up paper in your pocket. And then throughout the day, as you reach into your pocket through normal course of business, you'll hit this thing and you'll remind yourself, oh yeah, I have to do my developmental microdose. It's a really clever way to bring your awareness to this activity throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, if you still have that thing in your pocket, well, then you have to do your microdose before you go to bed. It's a very clever way to keep yourself on point, and thank you, Rodney, for that suggestion. So that's it for this week's Intentional Tuesdays. I hope you got a lot out of this concept. Like I said, I really do appreciate the concept of 1% better, but in terms of being actionable, I like the idea of developmental microdoses. As always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. I would love to hear from you if you implement this idea or any of the other ideas that I talk about on the Intentional Tuesdays. If you have an experience that you care to share, you could either reply to the comments wherever you're seeing this video, or feel free to shoot me an email, info@lifedesigncenter.com. Share with me what you are up to. I would love to hear from you. So with that, I wish you all the best and a prosperous journey. Until our paths cross again, take care.